Welcome back. Welcome in. It's Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I'm Mike Casazza, joined by Chris Anderson. Chris, let's just get this out of the way. I'm in the streets trying to get information, and this looks really bad. Um,
Hey, Mike, that's what you get for coming out of the hot board basement. Don't do it again, all right? Get back down there, get to work.
I'm just throwing elbows trying to get the scoops, and I definitely caught one. So yeah, this looks bad. I'm okay though. People have wondered about my safety, my whereabouts, my health. Just because I'm offline for a couple of hours, Lord forbid. But no, Chris is not torturing me.
Read
I'm
off the cue cards. Don't
I'm
go off
safe.
script.
Um, so yes, eventful, Chris, in a lot of the ways that coaching searches are. Also not eventful in the way that coaching searches are, because coaching search ends when you actually have a coach, and West Virginia does not yet have one. The search continues. So this is probably to the point now where I think people are frustrated or alarmed. I have no idea. Not my It's not my pastime, although, gosh, we're in a lot of these coaching searches. It seems like so I should be more attuned to these things, but it does feel like we're just about a week since Darren DeVries left for Indiana. I believe I can say his name without getting a black eye. That may change before too long. And then the first round of the tournament's over. The NIT has kind of thinned itself down. So you're thinking, all right, why not now? Especially with news that some of West Virginia's top candidates are out of reach, or West Virginia will not be securing them, whatever you want to call it. So, hey, just send the press release, plan the press conference, hit the portal, rebuild the roster, start over. Not that fast. Just early this morning, we reported this. It's going to be tomorrow, Wednesday, and maybe later because there is still some work they want to do. Yeah, there's two ways to look at this, Chris. So their candidates aren't. If the guys that they've been connected with are no longer available, then you just hire the best person available. The other part about that is too that maybe people are available now that weren't before, and by all indications, West Virginia is going to talk to and maybe talk a second time with candidates who were playing Saturday and Sunday and now have some time. Possibly because their season is continuing and they don't have a game for a couple of days. Probably because their season is over and now they are free to talk. No, it's not going to be Ben McCollum. Unlikely it's Nico Medved. And as we sit here on Monday morning, it is not yet Jared Calhoun. It might not be Jared Calhoun. There's obviously a lot of support for him. I tell you, there's a lot of pushback against him too for just combinations of reasons on both sides. But the field has been narrowed a little bit, and yet there's a good chance there's somebody in the field that we haven't really focused on yet too. Actually, there's a chance. I would call it a good chance, but there's a chance.
Can I take you somewhere before we get to names, specifics on guys, and ask you a question related,
Please.
of course. Um, Football. Neil Brown fired. There's a week plus before the transfer portal opens for football. Rich Rodriguez not officially hired until 3, 4 days after the portal window opens. Basketball. Darren DeVries leaves the full week before the NCAA transfer portal window opens for basketball, as which was this morning, by the way, for those listening, watching, Monday morning. Still no hire for men's basketball. Is this a mistake on Ren Baker's part? Is this something you shouldn't be? How much? Where should this be on the priority list if you were athletic director? I don't want to, pinpoint Ren Baker's make mistake here, but like a week is not a long time. It's not a short time to make a head coaching hire, especially if you already have a list prepared and you are ready to go. But going into the portal window, losing players, losing the inability to gain players is setting your team back. And now this is two coaching searches in a row. This has happened. Where should that be on your priority list when it comes time to making a coaching hire?
Well, that's a great question, and I wonder if it matters from one place to another, or one coach to another, because certainly it doesn't apply to everybody, everything. So last year they get in late and they do okay. I mean, I think a lot of people celebrated what they were able to do. Can lightning strike twice? You would think it'd be harder just because the odds say no, but if you hire the right person, who knows how many players that coach brings with him. And if that's from a Sweet 16 team or a second round team that won 25 games, that's not a bad thing to have that continuity and that talent. So You could hire a coach a week from now, but if he brings four starters, or five players or something like that, that helps out a lot. Chris, apply this to football for me too, because I get where you're going and I don't have a great answer. I think it should be a priority because it's 2025 and we're told the portal is everything. It's just Monday. They could have this done by Tuesday. And in all likelihood, a coach that gets hired is probably going to come with one or two people, but you're probably going to need a day or two to stand up your operation and get going. So Monday is really Wednesday in this regard. Tuesday is really Thursday. Wednesday is really Friday because there's going to be a buffer time between you announce somebody and they actually get to work and like make tangible progress. Don't you think the guys that announced their deals in the first like 24 to 48 hours, they were unattainable? They were already signed, sealed, and delivered when they got in the portal, or they announced they were going in the portal, I should say. And that's why guys announce like in the middle of, I don't know, March, way before the portal starts, that they're going to go in. Those deals are probably done, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So you lose that first cut. You'd have to hire an elite coach to be in those waters, I think. West Virginia, sorry, was not going to hire an elite 2025 coach. Maybe someone who's elite within a short amount of time, maybe someone who's elite among their peers, but someone who's going to have the pizzazz to go out and like nail the portal on the first day or two. I don't think that was the person they were going to get. They don't have that program, they don't have that NIL, they don't have that reputation. So not yet does it hurt. When you get a little bit thinner, like end of the week, that would be a problem. And again, if you're talking about not hiring someone on Tuesday or Wednesday and it's going to take a day or two to get your operation going, you're talking the end of the week. And then that just means your immediate splash. I still think the West Virginia could put together a good roster if they're late into the portal.
All right, Mike. Then let's talk names. We're here now. And there you mentioned a couple of them already. Sounds like McCollum. I mean, McCollum's out, going to Iowa.
We have been
Medved
talking about
seemed
this for 2 days, though, right? This is not a
yeah,
surprise. Like this seemed like all indications were, but go on. Yes.
yeah. I was gonna say our friends at the Iowa site, they reported it done yesterday. Just because, whatever for whatever reason it wasn't announced or ESPN didn't pick it up until today doesn't mean it wasn't true yesterday. So Um, been trending that direction. Nico Medved seems to be trending the Minnesota direction as of. I mean, this could be one of those podcasts where we're getting texts or notifications as we're recording, and it could change. But expecting him at Minnesota, where does that leave? You mentioned Jared Calhoun. We're familiar with that already, and the possibility. Who else? I mean, you have the hot board. We don't need to list every person on the hot board there, but who else could be talked about here seriously as things are hopefully nearing an end?
Still going to go with Ross Hodge, who's the head coach at North Texas. Ren Baker, familiar with him, familiar with some coaches that he's worked with before. He was Grant McCaslin's assistant at North Texas. I think that West Virginia would have been interested in Hodge the last two rounds, but he just didn't have, well, first, any head coaching experience at Division One. Now he's got 2 seasons. So even last year is probably a little bit early, but has his team in the Elite Eight of the NIT. If you look at the metrical, numerical stuff that Bren Baker likes with the metrics, your efficiency on offense and especially on defense. Hodge is known as a defensive guy, been successful in junior colleges. I think there's something to be said about being a junior college coach that has to flip your roster every year, every other year, and do that now. Really good personality. Like I think he'll be like a compelling guy, brand of basketball that people are going to like, and he's going to have a lot of supporters who are in the Rem Baker circle. I think that's one for sure. Um, I would say that the individual he defeated on Sunday night in the Sweet 16 of the NIT, that would be Arkansas State's Brian Hodgson. I think that's a hot name. I think it's a new name, and that's why it's a hot name. That's one that we were able to focus in on. I think on Saturday, we added into the hot board because we were encouraged to do so. That's a person that West Virginia is definitely interested in. That is a Nate Oates assistant at Buffalo, at Alabama, big time recruiter at both places, peaking at Alabama, but doing really good things with high schools and especially transfers at Arkansas State. High scoring offense. And because of that, like their points per game defense isn't great. They play fast, like Alabama, a lot of possessions. You try to shoot in the first half of the shot clock for sure. And maybe even the first half of the shot clock for sure. But you're going to play a lot of defensive possessions. But their percentages on defense, shooting percentage, 3-point percentage, assist turnovers again, stuff like that is pretty good defensively. So there's metrics there for him too, with offense and defense that click. Um, High points, Allen Huss is an interesting one. That's the guy that people think is inevitably going to be a high major coach. And I think at times, sometimes ADs get tired of looking at someone they like, end up somewhere else, and then realizing, for example, can't get him because he just went to this job. When I had an opening 2 years ago, I could have had him. And I wonder if a guy like Huss or Ross Hodge or Darren DeVries, for that matter, if you're like Indiana or Iowa or someone like that, if an AD just gets fatigued and says, I don't want to do this in 2 years, I could have this guy and be in a good situation in 2 years. And I wonder if a guy like that gets some momentum and credibility. Really well liked among his peers. People think he's ready for a high major job. I don't know if the optics matter here, Chris, but he is a Creighton guy, true and true. Played there, coached there. He's been with DeVries before on the staff at Creighton. Is that a little bit weird? Yeah. So maybe that's disqualifying. Did you catch West Virginia and Ben McCollum? Like they tried to get the Drake coach in back-to-back years, so I don't think that matters. And again, Ross Hodge, North Texas, Ren Baker was at North Texas. That hasn't stopped him there, so I don't think that would be prohibitive for a Huss. And then I mentioned this morning, Chris. I'm going to go back and look at Richard Pitino again. There had been a lot of talk that he was going to leave New Mexico for sure. It started off at maybe VCU, which doesn't seem like a leap for a guy like that who's been at Minnesota before, been like a Power Four coach. Now there's a lot of talk that maybe he won't be going there and he could be at Villanova. He could be in jobs and other places like that, not VCU, because maybe Villanova is not going to get Kevin Willard. Maybe Maryland has to pay to keep Kevin Willard now because he's in the Sweet 16 and has a pretty good team all season. Does that make West Virginia say, wait a minute, why not us? Why can't we have a conversation? I'm pretty sure West Virginia has had a talk with Pitino early in this, and maybe that can happen for a second round now. And that's where it gets interesting, Chris, because I don't think that's an exhaustive list, which frustrates me. There might be more people in that. I think you're going to look at probably 6 to 8 people. That's been the word West Virginia has been interviewing. We know of a couple for sure. Out of those interviews, word has been that they have conveyed that they're going to talk to 6, maybe 8 people, and they want to be done, middle of the week here. I didn't name 6 people. I doubt that all of those names are high probability candidates. So there's probably 1 or 2 more, which is my job now to try to figure out, is it a coach who's still going? Is it a Power Four coach who doesn't want to getting out? Is it somebody that's off our radar? Is it somebody that we've mentioned before, but just haven't seen at this time? Don't forget, West Virginia did this a year ago, and then the summer before that. Um, you don't have to have a great reunion, I guess, like some full courtship if you already know these people a little bit too. So there could be some work that's already been done, some work that can be done pretty quickly with candidates that we don't have yet names for.
All right, there's two different directions I want to go here. One of them's related to the interviews that have already been done. We'll come back to that in a second, though. But how do, and this is kind of two part, actually, this part is a two part as well, because it relates to the list from last year and maybe the perception of where Calhoun sits on this list. Because if you go back to Ren Baker's press conference last week, where he said, hey, a lot of this year's list is just the guys from last year's list, like several of them.
Hmm.
How is that going? What's the pitch here if you're Ren Baker of, hey, you know, didn't like you last year, but back in a bind, and here we are again.
Hmm.
What do you think now? Um, on the board, we discussed it with a couple members and kind of, you know, paralleled that to talking to a woman, an ex-girlfriend, or somebody you're interested in, and then treating them like a backup. That would not go over well. You might end up with your eye looking like Mike's if you did that. But how does that work in the world of, athletics and with college coaches? How are they going to take that? What is Ren Baker's pitch here?
I think it would hurt if you were looking at someone last year who thought he was ready and was at like a high mid-major job, and then you go back and he's only a year better. He's done everything that, let's say that there was a 3 or 4 year runway, 3 or 4 season runway to him being very good last year. Wins 24 games, conference championship, automatic bid, 12 seed, that type of profile. Typical mid-major March darling in the coaching circle. doesn't get a job, goes back to his school, does the same thing, and you come back again. That coach is no worse. He's still better. He's still good. Why not now? Well, why not last year? That's a great question. I get that. I don't see those candidates for West Virginia, though. Do you? And the people that you might have that little bit of a bitterness bias with, like the candidates be like, this again? Who would that be on this list? Calhoun, let's say. Well, he went from Youngstown State where he did really good work. I don't think people really appreciate the quality of the performance there because that's not a great basketball program or an athletic department. He gave him really good seasons. Then he went to Utah State, which is across the country, different part of basketball, different part of the map, and does really well in his first season there. That's different. Now he can say, you know what? I understand why you weren't before. I hope you understand why I'm ready now. I can see that being the case. A Medved, if he was good last year and he's good this year, why not last year? That might be difficult, and that's why Minnesota makes sense. But Hodges, even further down the list, Bucky McMillan, those are guys who last year were just so new to this. I don't think you could argue if you're that coach saying, you know what, you're right. It'd be a jump for me to go from first year in the Sun Belt, first year in the Southern Conference, all the way up to the Big 12 in 1 year. Difficult. Now, are they automatically ready 2 years in? I don't know. I think it's going to be relative to the situation, just a different conversation with every person. Coaches who were good last year and are good again this year, they can have a chip in their shoulder. Coaches who were in different spots last year or who weren't as successful last year, I think that West Virginia can come back and say, "Hey, man, you were great. This is what we like to see. This is why we're here. This growth from 24 to 25 or from 23 to 25. We like you a lot more. We liked you before, but this all looks good right now." And then if you're a candidate, how can you be mad about that?
Right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have two interviews that you're aware of so far, correct? Two actual like in-person interviews, not Zoom interviews, not let's chit chat on the phone interviews, two in-person interviews. Is that correct?
In person, I'm sure Jared Calhoun. I think Chester Frazier, who's West Virginia's like, well, de facto top assistant, as far as I know, he's the only one still around. He had an interview yesterday. I think they talked to probably two or three people both days, though.
Okay.
Who I don't know. There's been rumors, and I've had people give me some names that have probably mentioned on this podcast already. I can't tell you those are true. Wish I could. Not going to say that Richard Pitino had an interview. Not going to say that Alan Huss had an interview because I don't know that to be true yet.
All right. Well, I wanted to focus on Frazier because that is, the lone in-house candidate. When Ren Baker was asked about it earlier in the week, I mean, if you were there, if you were watching, which you were, if you were watching on a stream later like me, um, you could tell it was pretty obvious that it seemed like an in-house option was not likely, at least at that time. Now, since then, an interview, some support from current players that are, as of 10 a.m. Monday morning, still on the roster at West Virginia University. How much of a dark horse is this? Is Chester Frazier as a candidate here?
Extremely dark horse.
Okay.
Just I'd be very surprised. Player endorsements, you would be more moved if you didn't get player endorsements because that means the milk's gone bad. Players, especially players who transfer in, seeking something more comfortable and more friendly, but also players who've been around, they just want what's familiar. They want to know the coach. Um, Listen, just to be frank, when a new coach comes in, he breaks your back. Look at what Rich Rodriguez is doing proudly in football. I don't think players look forward to that. So, not to say that Chester Frazier wouldn't crack a whip, but you're not going to have a new coach who's coming in trying to test you, trying to break you and see what you're made of. I think players know that, and um, that's not something they're in a rush to do. And can I ask you why the rush for Chester Frazier though? Like, does I mean nobody knew who he was before last year, right? I mean, in coaching circles, sure, but people here were not like, it'd be great if we added Chester Frazier to the bench one day. Never really happened. He wasn't beating them in recruiting battles like you see sometimes in football. Like you'll have like a couple coaches in football that are just nemesis because they get you a whole bunch in regions that you like. And sometimes if you can't beat him, you hire him if you can do that. So I think he's probably a good coach who's got a great resume. I'm not saying he's not worthy of a job on some bench somewhere. He's probably a head coach before too long because that's just the arc of his career, and he is that liked in circles. But why would West Virginia be pushing him as a head coach? Like, what did he do that was absolutely him this year? Because again, his team didn't go where it was going to go. Should have been in the tournament, sure, but like it's not like it was some undisputable success. So makes sense, but way down the list, I would say a very very dark horse candidate.
All right, I'm bringing something over from football. Hold on a second. I'm about to sneeze, and I didn't even hit the cough button, but thankfully I didn't sneeze, so we're good. I'm going to bring something over from football, Mike. It's one of your favorite things. It's one of your absolute favorite things. The panic meter. Monday morning. Give me a gauge. Where are you at right now? What's your baseline right now? Monday morning panic meter for WVU men's basketball and their future.
Hey, do you remember we did this on what's your number for Darren DeVries being gone at the end of the year? And I said 70 and people flipped out. And I was like, because it was 1 to 10, not 1 to 100, but I was like 70 because I don't want to do a hot board. I'm not panicked. Like it already sucks, right? So we've already hit the bottom. I'm extremely intrigued now because it is so late and they're talking about 1 or 2 more days, which means there are going to be developments and likely names like some type of report or nugget from somebody somewhere, covering a team or somebody who calls or texts one of us and says, "Hey, here it is." Intrigues me at all. Panic, I don't know. Like if I was
Oh, not your panic. Panic for WVU fans. Where
no,
should
no,
their panic meter be?
sure. I wouldn't get there yet because you can get Calhoun. I don't think he's going to take a job anywhere else. I think that the word is that he really likes West Virginia, Cincinnati. He's been there before. Ohio State's huge in his eyes because he's from Ohio. Those are jobs that aren't open right now. And he just went to Utah. He has an extension offer on the table there too, from what we hear. So he's in a good spot. You can get him tomorrow. You can get him Friday, if that's your third candidate behind Medved and McCollum and some word like that. Or if he's your best available candidate, you can get him. And then now you parse through the other candidates and you figure out okay who it is. I would be more panicked if I were West Virginia making this choice right now among the fan reaction. I think that's a good question. What does Ren Baker and his search party of two or three, I guess, what do they feel is a panic among their fans by no activity right now? No names right now, not a lot of details coming out of this right now. Do they think that their fans, who they need, their donors, who they have to please, are they concerned? They're going to hire the wrong person, hire someone they don't like, hire someone they haven't heard of yet, hire someone who's going to take 1 or 2 years to do some ROI for them. That would be a higher number for me than I think fans' panic meter number would be. Does that make sense?
Um,
Unlikely.
Related. I want to lead you down a scenario here. A what if.
Yeah.
So you said, ideally a couple days, Wednesday. Let's say Wednesday. I know you didn't say there would be an answer by Wednesday, no matter what, but let's say Wednesday is the goal for Ren Baker in West Virginia to hire a coach. You get to Thursday or Friday. What does that mean? Does that mean A, you can't find anybody, or B, you have somebody, but you need to wait because they're still playing, or they're such a hot candidate that they have extra options. What does it mean if West Virginia does not have a coach by Friday?
It means more B than A for sure. Somebody is playing a Sweet 16 game or somebody's playing an NIT Elite Eight game. Don't forget the NIT's happening. I don't. The CBC hasn't even started yet, Chris. That starts the 31st. Ooh, what if it's a CBC coach? Hadn't thought of that, right? I would say it's more likely the fact that somebody's playing than they could not come to terms with somebody. I would also think that rather than settle on somebody from Group A if condition B is impossible. So they don't want to pick the best available candidate from their process, and they don't have somebody in the cards that's playing this weekend. There's a space in between, and that means let's go back and look at a second list of candidates that we haven't closed the circle with. And who could that be? Could that be like an Alan Huss? I keep using that name, but I want to be consistent. I don't think he's a top candidate. I think he's a candidate, but if things don't work with hypothetically Calhoun, Hodge, and Patino, let's say, All right, let's go back and revisit Huss. Is he still in? What would that look like? I can see that being the explanation. That's neither A nor B, but I think to answer your question, more B than A.
I'm typing this up. Mike reports Josh Eilert,
Hmm.
who is still coaching in the CBC, is
Hmm.
a candidate.
Listen, he's
All right.
he's won at two Big 12 schools.
I, I'm laughing because we obviously know that that's not realistic, but I mean, hey, a lot of people would kill for his career and he's done well over there. So, um,
Won at two Big 12 schools, knows the place, would be familiar with the donors, has put together a portal class, two portal
there you
classes,
go.
I guess, in his 1 year.
There you go.
Isn't it funny how you can massage and manipulate these boxes you have to check to make anybody look appealing? It's kind of like a resume test for the NCAA tournament. Then you pull a picture away, and you're like, whoa, no, no, thank you.
Um, do we want to delve into football right now, or we just cut it here for basketball and we'll come back on football later this week when, we continue to not have access? What's your thoughts?
What sport is this? What? Football? Listen, if you want to take a swing of football, I could probably use a refresher right now. So let's do a little bit of football.
A palate cleanse?
Yeah, I need to get my reps in here before we go back on Tuesday.
Well, let me ask you this. If you were a coach, real quick, would you want spring break in the middle of your spring football practice? I know, Rich Rodriguez was asked about it and he kind of said, hey, it's as far as long as he's known, it's been in the middle. And said there were some perks like kind of reevaluating the room and what, I guess that's, you're trying to find the silver linings in these kind of things. And it's like, hey, you can reevaluate the room and you can kind of reset what's going to happen here in the last couple of weeks. Like I got thinking about it with the quarterback room where he said, hey, six guys are repping. I'd like it to be down to four. And then like, this is the point where you come back from spring break and you're like, all right, um, you guys are no longer getting reps with the first or second team. We're down to four now or three and kind of similar things at every position. But other than that, I cannot think of a positive of having spring break in the middle.
Yeah, maybe if you want to know like who on your team is straight edge and doesn't come back with like the Cancun flu from spring break, that could be eye-opening for you. But I just think about players who like they make this seem um, like a boot camp or something like that. It's not as serious. I understand that, but you're going through a process. You're coming out different and better on one end. It's a test physically, mentally, all that stuff. They are intentional about those tactics and those explanations even. Um, to press pause in the middle and let everybody recharge, wander, fade, whatever, like that's a potential risk you incur right there too. I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, you find a benefit in the situation right now. Hey, it gives us a chance to evaluate the first 3 weeks and shape our final 2 weeks. Cool, I get that. That's fine. Would you design it that way? I don't know. And what's funny, Chris, is that West Virginia was going to go a week later initially when Rodriguez arrived, which means they would have had their break after the first week. That's interesting. So that doesn't work either. So they wanted to have that buffer in between the end of spring and the opening of the transfer portal. And I get that. That's important too. I guess my thing now is like, do you got to have just 3 days a week? Can you turn 15 practices into 3 weeks instead of six or 4 weeks instead of six? Does it have to be 3 days a week for 5 practice weeks? This time interrupted by 1 week of spring break. I wonder if that's something you have to look at now because, yeah, one, the weather is kind of an issue here. You don't want to be practicing outside in like the middle of February here. That's not great. Spring break is almost always going to be around St. Patrick's Day because West Virginia doesn't want students on campus for that. And the portal opens. So this also might just be a one-time problem though, Chris, because we might go to one portal window soon too.
Just check. I just want to check on that because I know that was talked about. We're coming back from spring break. And yes, for those listening, watching, Rich Rod and at least one assistant or player, I don't have the email in front of me, but Rich Rod and somebody else Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this week. So keep an eye out for updates from that. Who knows? Maybe things will change and they'll open up a practice.
I don't think
I know
so.
I'm dreaming, but hey, it's happened in the past years. Like they have had sent out a schedule that said not open and then followed up and been like, hey, you know what? Actually, we're gonna open it for a bit. if they're feeling nice, if they've stuck around for this entire podcast and they're watching, maybe.
Chris, news conference Friday?
Are you reporting news?
No, I just feel like
Oh, if they hire somebody. Yeah, because even if they hire somebody Wednesday or Thursday, they'll just do it Friday, I think. Yeah.
another thing to keep in mind now is too is West Virginia's basketball team plays in Chapel Hill tonight in the women's tournament too. So that will keep a number of hours blocked for Ren Baker. Like he's not going to be somewhere and risk missing that game. He's got to be in Chapel Hill. I mean, obviously at 7 o'clock on the tip. Like I don't think he wants to be boarding a plane in I don't know some neutral ground. Let's say now. My understanding is that they've used Charlotte as their base for a lot of this stuff, and that's about a 2 hour drive from Chapel Hill, which means they're probably taking a private jet from Chapel Hill to Charlotte, which is crazy when you think about it. But they got to knock out a bunch of these things. I guess the thing here would be who can get to Charlotte, but you're not going to see a lot of late night action, I don't think, tonight because got a game at 7 against a team that, boy, West Virginia sports would like to take something out on UNC sports, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Do you think Bubba Cunningham gets an extra bonus for the women's team making the tournament and hosting?
Would you give Randy Mazey courtside seats to this? Just sits there scowling.
I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Get a well, maybe Chester Frazier. He can be the dignitary for the men's basketball team.
Send it
Uh,
over there.
we can make it happen. All right. Yeah, should be a busy couple of days. Again, I think today is going to be a lot of rumor innuendo day. Maybe some steps toward a conclusion. Do not anticipate a conclusion. I think this is going to go tomorrow, Wednesday. Again, we'll try to find out more names, but no rush to finish this just to get it done. I think there's a rush to finish this just to begin whatever's next for whoever's next, but process has to unfold first. It's kind of Ren Baker's thing. He's got his string of events. He's going to put them in order. He's going to knock them all out. That may frustrate you, but that's what he thinks he has to do. He's pretty adamant that he's done so many of these things before. He's mentions at his press conferences how many times. Trusts his process. Thinks he's hired good coaches. This seems to work. Doesn't think that what happened last year should make him operate differently. And get to know your candidates. Get to know their fit in the job because you don't want to be doing this again in a year or two either.
All right, Mike. Well, let's wrap this up and get out of here so you can get back to hot board basement. Um,
Sounds good.
hate for you to have to see the light of day. You know, get out and enjoy yourself. So get
All
back to
right.
it.
I'm gonna get some ice and some coffee, two different things, one for my eye, one for my brain. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We'll talk to you then.